Oh, wow. Good evening, everyone. That's a little better. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you attending this evening's town hall. So we're actually going to talk about two things this evening. Let's get to the agenda first. And so I apologize. I'm going to look back and forth between my computer and the big screen. So first, some of you I probably have not met, so I'm going to give an introduction, talk a little bit about my leadership approach, something I shared in my initial town hall that was held in June. I want to talk about some great news specific to our state report card. I'm going to give a very high-level overview of the report card information so that you have that, but I actually stole most of the report card information from Dr. Cruz and Mrs. Aramet, who did a very deep dive into all of the components, which you can see, I think, 2 board meetings ago, if you want that level of information. So I'm going to give you a high-level overview of the report card, share some great news about that, and then really what I'm going to talk about is the question that I've continued to get, even walking in the door: why are we asking for a levy? And so I want to share some facts about our finances and the reason that we're on the ballot again in November. So with that, let's get started. So this is my 35th year in the field of education. Hard to believe. I started my career, I'm from Ohio. I'm an Ohio guy, born and raised just outside of Youngstown, Ohio. I spent 4 years of my career teaching in Naples, Florida. Never snowed there. Ran from a hurricane or two, but it never snowed. Weather was beautiful. Made the trek back to Ohio. When I came back to Ohio, I had the opportunity to teach at Cleveland Metropolitan Schools. Spent a year there, or a semester there actually, teaching middle school, multi-subjects. Had the opportunity to go to Beechwood City. Was there for 4 years. I taught 8th grade science. I did some elementary school counseling, and the last year I was in Beechwood. I opened their first OWA program, a work-study program. Beechwood's a great place to be. When you're a young guy, it's a place where you say, I can be there forever, unless you go to Perry, which is on the east side, the one with the power plant. And so I had an opportunity to go to Perry. Took that opportunity in 1998, accepted a position as a high school counselor, played that role for 4 years, was a high school assistant principal there for 5, a middle school principal there for 5, and my last year at Perry I was the director of college and career readiness. Had the opportunity to step into the superintendent's role at Cardinal Local, which is in Geauga County, Middlefield, Ohio. And from there, I had the opportunity to take a position with the Ohio Department of Education, which is now the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. I was the Deputy Chief of Field Relations. As things were changing at the state level, I started looking for a role back in the field. Had the opportunity to take the interim superintendent position in Pickerington, which is just outside of Columbus. And if you haven't heard this story, Dr. Smilik was hired at Pickerington about the same time this job opened up, and I accepted the position here. So very happy to be here leading the district. So one of the first things that I shared in that town hall and in the interview process was, how are you going to lead in this district? And so I really have a 3-prong approach. It's about collaboration and teamwork. I think it's very important that not only internally with our own staff that we're collaborative and that we're building teams, but we're also doing that in the community. We also need to make our decisions about everything we do, whether it's our finances, our student programming, around data. So it's very important that we use our data when we're making decisions about the district. And finally, we have to be aligned, especially when it comes to the discussion about student achievement and progress. We have to be aligned to our state standards. We have to be aligned to our strategic plan, and we have to be aligned to our board's priorities. And so you'll hear this discussion ongoing throughout the year about alignment. We do have a strategic plan. I think I touch on that a little bit later. But that plan is really the guiding force for the district, and it's something that we need to make sure that we align to and fulfill moving forward. So I want to talk about some great news. So last year, the district report card, and I'm only talking district level in this particular point in this presentation. So district level, our report card, we were at 3.5 stars, and we were very close last year to 4 stars. And this year, our district report card, we were at 4 stars out of 5 stars. And you don't see it up there, but when you pull up the page, I'm going to take just the smallest bit of credit. My name's on that report card, but all the hard work that happened to get to 4 stars, I really had nothing to do with. It's some of our leadership team that's here, certainly our teachers and our support staff that come to work every day, making sure that students and families get what they need. It really is a tremendous accomplishment in a district this size with all the things that we have going on to hit 4 stars. It's really something to be proud of. So that report card is made up of 6 components. You can see achievement, where we got 3 stars, progress, where we got 4 stars, and progress is tied to achievement, but it's really about making sure that kids grow, at least 1 year's worth of growth from the time they enter the year and by the time they leave the school year they're in. We also got 5 stars in gap closing, and gap closing is really about our subgroups of students. Students with disabilities, English learners, socioeconomic disadvantaged students, the subgroups. That is pretty significant to get 5 stars. That means we are growing kids at least a year's worth of progress over the period of time that they're with us that year. And typically, these are the kids that struggle the most in school. So we are closing the gap there. Our graduation rate, last year we were at 2 stars. In fact, I think we were at 2 stars for several years leading into this year. This year we're at 3 stars. Early literacy, we're at 2 stars. And I do want to say something about early literacy. It's not about whether or not students can read. Early literacy is not about reading. It's about proficiency, it's about growth, and it's about 4th grade promotion. So it really has very little to do with can students read. So sometimes people see those stars, and in the previous iteration of the report card rating, if you got a D or an F, people in the community would see that and say, kids can't read. That's not what that means. And again, I won't do the deep dive into this, but wanted to make sure that I talked briefly about that. College, career, workforce, and military readiness, 4 stars. Basically, this means we are preparing kids for enrollment, or enlistment, or employment, the 3 E's. So when they leave us with a diploma, they are ready for whatever they choose to do next. Again, quite an accomplishment. Overall, we're at 4 stars. So I want to explain this a little bit. So this is, I'm going to catch up on my screen here. So when you get a rating of 4 stars, this means you're exceeding the state standards. And so we should be proud of the fact that we are exceeding state standards. And I want to point out in our district overall rating, the chart that's on your left, in 2022 and 23, we earned 3 points and we were at 3.5 stars. We earned 3.108 stars in 23-24, and we were at 3.5 stars. And you could see just a little bit of movement in the points that we earned this year. 3.188 puts us at the 4 stars. So although it looks like a little bit of movement there, there's a lot of hard work that goes into it at the classroom level to make sure that our students are achieving at higher levels. You can also see on the points earned and the rating, this is how they rate us. So if you are at greater than or equal to 3.125 but less than 3.625, we're at 4 stars. And again, you can see how close we are in that category. But important to note, we're exceeding state standards. So I want to talk a little bit about the overall rating distribution. So in the middle where the green star is on top of that 147, that's where we land. So we're at 4 stars amongst a group of 147 other school districts. There are districts that have 4.5 stars. There are 95 districts that are at 4.5 stars. And there are 47 districts that have 5 stars. So we are, again, climbing from 3.5 to 4, and of course, we have our eyes on 4.5 and 5. You can also see the bulk of the distribution in the state is about 3 stars, with 159, or 3.5 stars, I apologize. 159 schools there, 102 schools at 3 stars, 2.5, and 2 stars. So again, we're proud of the fact that we're at 4 stars, exceeding state standards, and landing where we are when we compare across the state. So I want to talk about this chart a little bit as well. So when you look at the district level component rating distribution, if you remember from that first screenshot, there are the components that make up the full rating: achievement progress, gap closing, early literacy, graduation, and college, career, workforce, and military readiness. And so, for example, when you look at the 5 stars, and I'm going to skip down to gap closing because we got 5 stars in gap closing, you could see that there are 200 other districts that got 5 stars in gap closing. That's a fairly large amount of districts in the distribution at 5 stars. You could see, and I'm going to go back up to the top, achievement, we got 3 stars, about 210 districts in the state, also at 3 stars in achievement. In progress, we were at 4 stars, 156 other schools in that distribution. Early literacy, 27%, or 164 other districts at 2 stars. So please know we are targeting this area. We know that this is something we need to improve, and our senior leadership team, our curriculum folks, our principals and teachers are laser focused on that for this year. Our graduation rate at 3 stars, 75 other districts in that category, and college, career, workforce readiness, 130. And then the bottom chart, you could just follow along through the years, where we were in 2021, 22, leading up to 24 and 25. And you could see where we improved in the graduation rate from 2 stars to 3 stars. And you could see that we've maintained that gap closing at 5 for 3 years. So I know our assistant superintendent and our director of curriculum, they're pretty competitive. So I know when they created this chart, they wanted to show kind of where do we line up in the competition. So in the state of Ohio, there's the ability to pull what's called comparable districts. And so typically you get a list of 20 schools that you would compare to. And it's based on a variety of different things, from the size of the district to your socioeconomics and demographics in the district. And so Willoughby, Eastlake, North Olmsted, Berea, Cuyahoga Falls, and Plain local, all local Northeast Ohio districts are in that list. So we wanted to look at those 5 as we compare as well. You will notice that we outperform or tied all of our comparable districts with an overall rating of 4 stars, progress of 4 stars, gap closing with 5, and college career readiness with 4 stars. So here's where we did better. Overall, we did better than 17 other districts, and we tied with 3. So yay, Parma. You'll notice in achievement, we did better than 4 other districts, and we tied with 11. In progress, we did better than 12 other districts, and we tied with 8. You'll notice in gap closing, we did better than 16 other districts and tied with 4. You'll see in early literacy, again, we know that that is a focal point for us, that we did better than 1 other district. We tied with 8, but we're below 11. Graduation rate, we did better than 4, tied with 7, and we're below the 9 others. And that college, career, workforce, military readiness, we did better than 18 other districts and tied with 3. So again, just want to highlight our overall performance and how we match up with the comparable districts. So here's something I really want to take a little bit of time to focus on. So as you know, we, or maybe you don't know, we run our own career tech programming in the district. We have 2 comprehensive high schools. We run 17 programs, all in-house. We don't send kids out to Polaris or to Cuyahoga Valley to get this kind of training. So we do it all right here. And again, high level in achievement, we've reached 4 stars in achievement on the career tech report card. Again, 4 stars means you've exceeded state standards in technical and academic achievement. Graduation rate in our programs, 5 stars. That's outstanding, significantly exceeding state standards and graduation rates. Career and post-secondary readiness, 5 stars, again, significantly exceeding state standards and career and post-secondary readiness. Post-program outcomes, 5 stars, again, significantly exceeding state standards in post-program outcomes. Now this is, oh, thank you. Let me do that again. 5 stars in graduation and 5 stars in career and post-secondary readiness and 5 stars in post-program outcomes. My apologies, I was clicking that and not clicking this. All right, so I thought this was very interesting. One of the questions I asked on the way into the district was, I know we have career tech programming here, I know we have 2 comprehensive high schools. Are we the only ones in the state that does this? I did not know. And, but here it is. There are 8 other districts. There are 8 total districts in the state of Ohio that do their own comprehensive career tech programming. Only 8 in the state. And you can see, well, maybe you can't. We're listed at the top there in the green. We've got Youngstown, Lima, East Cleveland, Columbus, Toledo, Dayton, and Cincinnati. Some of them are sprawling urban centers. And the reason we wanted to ask this is because if you look at the top, we are at the top of that chart. Out of the 8 districts, we are at the top. We hit 8 out of the 9 indicators for career tech ed programming. The one that we didn't hit was non-traditional program enrollment, and this has to do with males and females who enroll in specific programs. But we hit 8 out of 9. And you'll probably hear me say this a little bit later in the presentation. What we do around career tech for students and families is priceless. This is something that we should work very hard to maintain in our district. So we do have a strategic plan. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. It's very important for the district, I know for the board and for administrators, that we tie everything we do back to that plan. And so you'll see we have some areas of focus in our strategic plan, 3 specifically. The first one is improve student achievement. So this is around making sure that we have opportunities for our students to succeed in our classes and outside of our classes, and that we provide for them a healthy learning environment. It's in the strategic plan. A lot of work happened last year around the strategic plan, and we're going to continue to move that forward and honor that work that's been done. You'll see number 2, practice fiscal responsibility, being financially transparent, and making sure that we have a focus on our buildings and facilities. And as many of you probably know, we have some aging buildings, and our facilities need the maintenance and upkeep that they deserve, especially if we're going to house students in those buildings. And then finally, increase transparency and connection with communities, which means we have to provide excellent service to everyone that we serve, and that we need to make sure that we have a culture of communication and collaboration. And so everything we do ties back to the strategic plan, and everything that we're going to plan for in the future will also tie back to that plan. So, the burning question, why another levy? I was asked this in June, why are you doing a levy? I was asked this a month ago as the board was preparing to put a levy on the ballot. I was asked this the other day, why are you doing another levy? And I know there's a lot of talk out there now. Why are you doing a levy? So the simple answer is because we keep losing. We don't have any other mechanism to raise money to support the operations of this district. That's the simple answer. We keep asking because we haven't passed one since 2011. So that makes it difficult to operate. And I'm going to share some more information with you specific to the finances, facts about our finances. So we're doing this one because we need the money to operate. It's an operating levy. And so let me talk a little bit more about what this means. So I'm going to start with federal funding. So this summer, in August, if you've been following any of this in the news, there's an effort at the federal government to hold back funding around title programs and not to distribute or allocate monies back to the states or back to school districts. And so we have 7 programs that support our students in the district. Title 1A, improving basic programs. Title 2A, supporting effective instruction. Title 3, language instruction for English learners. Title 4A, student support and academic enrichment. IDEA-B, which is our special ed funding, and IDEA early childhood, which is also special ed funding, and we also have what's called the Carl D. Perkins Career and Tech Ed Grant. So all of those programs help support what we're doing with students in the district, and those dollars are important. So I want to talk about 2025 first, so last year. So our allocations for last year are right here in each of those programs, totaling $9.8 million. Significant amount of money, again, to help us support students in the classroom. And I also want to point out that that amount includes the non-public portion of that money which we are required to give to our non-public partners. And I want to talk a little bit about that so that there's an understanding about what that means and what that means for the district. So remember, last year 9.8 was our total allocation with carryovers. This year, our allocations with our estimated carryovers as of July 8. Again, you can look at the bottom, 8.5 million. So that's about 1.335 less than what we received in 2025. So that's the first issue. We're not getting the money as allocated to us from the federal government as we expected to get. So it's less. 1.3 is a significant amount of money less. You also see again here, this includes the non-public portion of those allocations. This summer, Title 2A, 3, and Title 4 on August 6th had zeros in them. We were not anticipating getting dollars in those programs. And then on the 7th, this is actually the day of the board meeting that I shared this with the board, that those allocations dropped. So we were happy to see money in those spaces, again, because they support what we do with kids. So we're losing federal funding. So here's what it looks like when I talk about the non-public. So again, I said we're required, I think it's 15% that we have to set aside, and we're required to make sure that our non-public partners have that money. It's typically for related services for students that they serve. So in Title 1A, we provide $390,000 and some change to our non-public schools. For Title 2A, approximately $70,000. Title 3 for English learners, approximately $5,700. Title 4A, $73,000. IDEA-B, $191,000. That's about $750,000 that is not serving our students in our district. That's money we're required to give out. On top of the fact that we hire approximately, or we have on staff approximately 12 people that manage those dollars and make sure we're in compliance. So we're paying those folks. They're on our payroll. They work for us. So a portion of their job is to make sure we are compliant and that those non-publics get their money. On top of the fact that if you followed anything at the state level, we're losing out on about $5 million. So the first reason why is we keep losing at the ballot box. Second reason why is federal funding and state funding has been cut, which impacts how we can operate. It impacts our cash reserve. It impacts the dollars that we can allocate to support the programs we provide. So I want to talk about days of cash. So most public entities, and maybe you personally at home, you keep some kind of reserve on hand in case of an emergency, right? You get that flat tire, you need some money to pay for a new tire, right? We have the same thing. In fact, we have a policy. It's called cash balance reserve. And this is the board's policy. And basically the board policy says this: the board affirms that tax levies shall be pursued and or the district's finances otherwise managed to ensure a general fund cash reserve balance equivalent to 60 days of last fiscal year's operating expenses. The cash balance reserve will be approved as part of our annual 5-year forecast and will be calculated yearly. So our policy is, when we begin to dip below our policy range of 60 days, then the board shall seek a levy. Again, another reason why we continue to come back. We haven't passed a levy since 2011. This is the board's policy, and that's part of the reason why the levy is on the ballot. So I'm going to share some updated numbers. I shared this slide in August with the board. Last board meeting, the 5-year forecast was voted on. It has to be submitted to the state. So we have to do that every October 15th, I believe. And so we had to update the 5-year forecast. And I'm going to emphasize the word forecast. It's a forecast. It is not our budget. It's a forecast. It's our prediction of where, based on a variety of assumptions that the treasurer makes on where we're going to fall in terms of where our money will land. But that typically changes when you get to actually budgeting and allocating money. So last school year, I shared in 2025 that our days of cash was 123 days, and I'm going to share with you the new days right now. So in 2025, that number is actually now 108 days, so still well above our policy of 60. Next year, where we have it listed as 69, slight improvement, we're at 84 days, still above the policy as we are in this slide. But when you get to 2027, where we're at 24 days, we'll be at 48 days. We're below our policy. So again, why are we asking the community to support a levy? Because when we hit 2027 at 48 days, we're below our policy. And I could tell you, when I worked at the Department of Ed and Workforce, one of the offices that reported through me was Fiscal and Finance, the folks that oversee the 5-year forecast. And I could tell you what's going to happen when we hit this with no relief in terms of additional revenue. We're going to get a letter, or the treasurer and I will get a letter, and it will say potentially that we're going to put you in a precaution status, meaning that you got to fix your deficit here. What's your plan? And we'd have to submit a plan. Or it'll be bad enough where they will come to us and place us in one of 3 official statuses. They'll place us in caution, watch, or emergency. And I can tell you none of those are a good thing for a school district. You do not want, I do not want, I would hope our board does not want the state to come in and tell us what to do. Because what happens when you hit that nuclear option at the top, emergency, they will assign a 5-person commission, and they will tell us what to do. The board will have no authority to make any decisions. They'll tell the treasurer where to spend the money. They'll tell the superintendent who gets to work here. And that's how it works. And that's not good for a school system or a community, or our 3 communities, rather. So when we get to 28 and 29, we're at negative 25 and negative 79. we'll be at -10 and -29 in this new forecast. Again, either way, we're going to be placed in some sort of status if we can't operate. So it's important, again, at least from my perspective, when I look at the finances, and I'm not the treasurer, but when I look at the finances and I see that in 27 we're going to be under our policy, knowing that the state is going to react to that I'm concerned about that. And I know everyone that works here is also concerned about that. We also spend $445,000 a day to run our system. We're open 24/7, 365 days a year. We don't close in the summer and shut everything down. We have people that continue to work. We also continue to pay people over a period of 24 or 26 months. So we have to have those monies to meet payroll and to pay our staff as they work in the summer months. So that's critically important. Now I want to focus a little bit on this, staffing. Because I thought this was interesting. One of the questions I got in my initial town hall was this. You spend 88% of your money on staffing. That's out of line. Why are you doing that? And my response then was, I don't know, I just got here. But I'll look into it. And so I did. Had some conversations with our treasurer, board president, and others to talk about what are the actual numbers and where did 88% come from? So I'm going to go to the very bottom of this slide where it says, in the May 25 forecast, again, forecast, that forecast indicated estimated salaries and benefits at 88% versus what the actual salary and benefits were at 83.3, and I'll walk through that in a second, and how they're calculated at year end. So the number that was floating out there was based on estimates. I don't like to use estimates. I like to use the actual numbers. So we talked about what are the actual numbers. So our actual expenditures last year, $162 million. Our staffing, salary and benefits, and I'm also going to say this, I'm including our career tech staff in this. Those teachers are also part of that calculation. So 162 million, 135 million in salary and benefits, it's 83.3%. It's not 88%. It's 88.3, and I think we may have also reported on this estimated October update that the estimate is 88%. That's not going to be the actual. It will be somewhere around 83%, and I can tell you just from my own experience in districts that it's typical to spend between 78 and 80% of your budget on staffing. We spend 83%. That's not out of line, especially knowing that we are paying to do comprehensive programming and career tech here. So not out of line. So you can see that we spend $4.8 million in CTE staffing, salary and benefits. That's about 3.5% of that number. So if we didn't have that, and I'm not suggesting that, if we didn't have that staffing payment, we'd be right in line with every other district at 78 to 80%. So we run 17 programs here, and again, I've mentioned this, priceless. You can't give this kind of gift back to kids or families, especially in today's economy when people are struggling to get out and find something in the workplace. Our kids are leaving prepared to do that. Here's the other thing you probably didn't know. So, and this is based on 2023 tax tables. So let's just hypothetically say we don't offer a career tech and we have to send our kids out because that's what happens. They'll go to Polaris or Cuyahoga Valley. When you go to those programs, typically students have to apply and they're selected. Not every kid gets the opportunity to go. And typically it's 4 or 5 juniors and 4 or 5 seniors. So those programs would serve 20 kids at Parma City Schools. We're serving hundreds of kids in our programs here. But for the taxpayer, you'd pick up the tax burden. So if we send our kids out, based on 2023 tax tables, it's 1.2 mils in operating and 0.69 mils in permanent improvement. Total effective millage, 1.89 mils for taxpayers that live in our district. I don't know, that probably calculates to be about $20, $21 in addition to whatever taxes you currently pay. So you'd shoulder that burden if you were a property owner here. So why? When I look at this, the reason why is we keep losing. We don't have enough, we can't invest in Bitcoin. I've said this before. We're not going to win the lottery. And so our only mechanism is to come to the voter and ask them to support the schools. That's the only way we can raise revenue. So the days of cash policy, in my mind, is something that we pivot off of as part of the reasoning, on top of the fact we're losing money at the state and federal level. We also need to consider, what opportunities do we want for kids here? And I suppose, my belief is we want to offer everything that we could possibly offer our kids here, but what's your belief? Kids deserve the very best that we can provide. And then I think we have to be forward-thinking. I've tried not to talk about this as another levy ask or another tax increase, although the reality is that's what it is. But to me, this is really an investment in the future for students here. 5, 10, 15 years down the road. And so what kind of an investment are we willing to make in the future of our students who will leave here, and many likely may stay in our 3 communities to live and work? And I can tell you many examples. I know I've asked in an OPSI meeting, raise your hand if you live here, you went to school here, and now you work here. And it's overwhelmingly more than majority do. At our opening leadership meeting, we had our meeting in Seven Hills. And Mayor Tony came in and talked about his staff. And he listed about 15 or 20 people. And he listed them by name and the high school they graduated from. And they're all Parma kids. So we know that not only can we provide a value for our students and families, but also for the community, our 3 communities as a whole in terms of what we can provide. So this is really, for me, this is an investment in the future. This is not necessarily an increase in taxes, although I do understand that's exactly what it is. So we want to make sure that we protect and strengthen and protect what we have. And so those are the whys. This is why we're asking. So that's my information, if you care to use it. If you use Twitter, I use Twitter quite a bit. I push out stuff that's happening across the district. And so I will stop there, and I'm sure there are questions. Microphone's coming.
Bring it up. Test. All right.
So I've been doing small business accounting for about 30 years, and I saw in the past 11 years the district has closed 5 schools. Surely that's got to be saving somewhere to reduce the amount of money you need. Not only that, but the schools that have been sold, what happened to those properties? Where did that money go? That's my first question.
No, good questions, thank you. And so I would say this, I know in the consolidation, anytime you close a building and move staff, or likely you're losing staff, you're no longer paying for the operation of that building, so that I can't give any solid numbers. I'd have to look, what those savings were. I think I heard maybe with the consolidation of the Parma Senior High that approximately $3.5 million was saved. But I'd have to double check the fact for you, but I think that kind of aligns with the question you're asking, what happens to that money. It goes back into the general fund, but we're in a position where the cash reserve that I'm talking about, we're dipping into that to pay the bills. And when that goes away and we're at that, under that cash reserve policy, which we will be, this is, again, why we ask. That the savings in doing those things won't overcome the 23 or 24 million we'd need to have to cover that policy.
I have 2 questions, but one simple one. The other way you could increase revenue is by reducing expenses. If you cut that 88 million down to 80 million, which is a 10% reduction, that you talked about in this card, you got your problem solved, number one. Number two, I'm very concerned about the early literacy program going on here. And I don't think most people have gone into the 6-year history where 4 schools have gotten 2-star and 1 school has gotten 1 star. And I don't think people know about that. So you're losing the benefit of the growth of those people over the next couple of years. But just cut 10% of the people and you got your problem solved. That's all you have to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and when we get to a point where we have to do that, it's typically where you start. Yeah. 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 So I want to talk real quick about the early literacy piece, and I think I said this earlier. This isn't about whether or not kids can read. There are actually 3 components that tie into this, and I know you guys will correct me if I'm wrong. There are 3 things that go into that star rating. So again, it's not about whether or not kids can read. It's about grade 3 proficiency tests. It's about improving literacy or that growth factor, and it's about being promoted to grade 4. So none of those things actually speak to whether or not students read. And when you look at the proficiency, we were 1 percentage point below the state average. So the state isn't even at a level where they could say, you know, you're not quite there yet. And so I know that our folks here internally are working with our principals and our teachers to address this particular component. Did you have another question? Do you have another question?
That's a good idea, but I think for 6 years, those schools have failed or gotten a D, so why not create another horse than the same one you have? And whether they fail by 1 point or 10 points, they're failed. When I was in school, if I got a 72 and 73 was mom, the teacher said, tough luck, you should study more. So, but for it's Thoreau Park to have 1 star for the past 6 years, and Pleasant Valley, Ridgebrook, and John Muir to have 2-star for the past 10 years. Those kids, if it's 5 kids, it's a bad thing, and you got to solve that problem. Now, I know the board, 3 are leaving and 2 are staying. We have 3 new people coming on. They could create a whole new system there, and then you have something to sell to get the levy for the next time.
Thanks. Thank you. Other questions? We got one back here. Or where, you go wherever, Jack. You got the mic.
I actually wanted to address the early literacy.
Can't hear you.
I wanted to address the early literacy as a parent of kids within that early literacy program. I have 2 children in preschool who are at actually the early education preschool program, and I also have a child who's in special education in 3rd grade at Densler. One of the things I do have to say is during COVID especially, I had one of my daughter's IEP teachers actually contact me, showed up to my house, sat on a front lawn with a blanket 6 feet away, and taught her because she needed, part of her IEP program was to have reading intervention. So these teachers really do try. They go out of their way with what they have. I've seen with my preschoolers, I have a daughter who's autistic. She could hardly even, you know, she couldn't speak when she first started going, and she has really just opened up and blossomed. So with early literacy, I mean, the teachers are doing what they can. They're doing with what they're provided with. I have seen, actually, I grew up in Stowe City Schools. I did not grow up here. And I have been actually highly impressed with the IEP and early literacy with these kids because these teachers have been outstanding compared to Stowe. And I'm not saying anything bad about Stowe, but I'm just saying with their IEP program, it has been fantastic. So with early literacy, they're trying everything they can. They really are doing a really, really good job. My son that's sitting next to me, he scored a perfect score on the state OSTs for math. So this is a child who, you know, we really do care, and it's great to see the teachers how hard they do try. So I just wanted to throw that out there as somebody who actually does experience it day to day.
Thank you.
So I know that the federal and state have reduced the amount of monies they're giving, but what are superintendents throughout Ohio doing regularly and continuously to put pressure to change the amount of money that is coming through to you instead of coming to the taxpayers?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're actually part of a couple of advocacy groups that lobby for us at the federal level and at the state level to share that story. Like, you're taking money from us, but it falls on deaf ears. They're not changing. So I'm going to go back. So if you followed any of this, several years ago, the last biennium budget, Cupp and Patterson, both legislators at the time, worked with superintendents across the state to create the Fair School Funding Plan. And it was meant to keep up with the base costs of educating a child in a school district. Our state legislator this year said, it's unsustainable, we're not doing this. And so we're left in that lurch. They're not funding schools at the state level the way that we were expecting them to be funded this year. In fact, the money we're getting is based on 2022 finances. So again, we do lobby. We have groups that lobby for us with our state legislators and at the federal level. And again, in Ohio, we're a local control state, and we rely, I think, is it 67% of our budget is property taxes. So there are efforts across the state with superintendents and with groups that do take on that task.
Thank you. Hi, Dr. Hunt.
Hi.
Can you speak to the declining enrollment? That seems to be a real sticking point for some people.
Yep.
So I would love for you to just,
Yeah.
they presume expenses are down, so therefore we should be fine. So if you could speak to that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, so I think every district in this, and maybe across the state, have declining enrollment. There are some that are growing, but not many. You probably also don't realize this, but there are 35 choices for families in our district. And that's okay if you choose to do something other than Parma City Schools. But there are 35 other choices that we are competing with, 35 parochials, communities, and charters, where families make that choice to go, and that's their choice. So part of our declining enrollment, I think, is due to choice. There's also some information out there that says, there's no baby boom. People aren't having babies. And if you look at our three communities, we have an aging population. We don't have an influx of young families with school-age children, at least, although I am hearing that people are buying homes here that have families. So I think the declining enrollment has a variety of factors that play into that. I don't think there's just one thing. When I was at Perry, when I started out, there were 1,900 kids. They got 1,300 kids. When I was at Cardinal, we had 1,300 kids. They're down to 800 kids. So this is happening all over. And I think a variety of factors play into that. I don't know if I could pinpoint just one.
Elaborate on that. I think people assume you've got fewer students than X number of years ago, so therefore we shouldn't need more money.
Yeah. So to me, this comes down to the financial piece of this in terms of our operating. And yes, there are things that we can do and we will do here in the future to address the money. But the fact of the matter is we're deficit spending. Our cash reserves are going to be eaten up, and we won't be able to operate. And that's why we're asking. Yes, if we lose some enrollment here, let's say we lose 100 kids, and we still have people under contract to teach. So we have that we have to contend with. We don't just necessarily, let people go when we know we have a need in the classroom to have those certified or classified staff members for whatever function they serve to make sure that those kids get what they need. I don't know if that completely answers your question, but And again, we're not getting funded at the levels we thought we were, and we're trying to battle inflation, increasing costs. All of those things come into play when it comes to the financial end of this.
Yeah. Maybe many of us, but certainly I am curious about the tax structures that fund the schools. I mean, the numbers we get to see, I think it's something like 80%, might be higher than that. And the other number we're throwing at us, last year, I guess, our taxes are going up about 32%. That to me means automatically the schools are going to get more money. Not in 24, not in 25, but 26 is when we'll actually start paying that.
So I don't have those numbers right in front of me, and I don't know if, Sean, you want to hop in on this one? Our treasurer's here, so I'm going to put him on the spot.
I think I understand your question. About 67% of your taxes go to the school district. The rest of it goes to the county, the city,
Metro Parks,
Metro
libraries.
Parks, Tri-C. So most of it goes to us. Cities are funded mostly by income tax. So that's where they're going to get the funding. Counties have sales tax and they get property tax. They have other taxes. We only have one source of revenue other than the state, which is property tax. That's why we're 67% of your tax bill. Now, when you say your taxes go up 32%, we don't get 32% more taxes. The valuation goes up 32%. We get about 4 or 5%. We only get money on our inside millage, which goes with inflation. All the levies we have, we don't get any more money on those. We call them emergency levies, which are really fixed sum levies. So the levy is $15 million. If property taxes go up 32%, we still get $15 million. We don't get $15 million plus 32% increase in inflation. That's by state law. So what we did receive in additional funding last year, or this fiscal year, I should say, is about $3.4 million. And that's with a 32%, if that's the actual number, increased valuation in the whole district. So we don't get anywhere proportionately what the property values go up. I hope that answers your question.
Does that help? A little bit?
So your number is 88% going toward salaries and benefits. So roughly, what's the ratio?
83%.
Okay, 83. What's the ratio of salary to benefit there? 60 salary, 20 benefit?
Yeah.
Okay. And the benefits that they're getting could, I'm not familiar with this
Yep.
teachers and whatnot get, but many businesses, because I've done their accounting, only insure through high deductible plans, by the way, the employee, not their family. You could buy it, but you got to pay it out of pocket. And they're all high deductible plans. Is the plan that the schools offer something similar to what's done by a private employer, such as the ones I've been working for? Or is it something different? Because it's very costly insurance. I'm not saying they shouldn't get it. I just want to know what they get.
So some of this is contractual. We negotiate this into our employees' contracts. We have Medical Mutual, who is our provider. I believe we have a high deductible plan for current employees. We also got hit with an 18% premium increase this year. And so that is something that we are currently looking at in terms of cost savings, because we can't do 18% premium increases in insurance. So there's family plan and a single plan. There's the ability for people to opt out of a plan. And I think, you correct me if I'm wrong, family plan's probably close to about $25,000 in that benefit, and 10 to 12 or so for a single benefit.
So for a family plan, what is the average contribution of the employee towards that plan, towards their premium? Just
Sean,
off
do
the
you know
cuff,
the
roughly.
average contribution for,
Just roughly.
that's okay, sorry. Contribution
You don't
for
know?
benefits, what's the breakdown?
Is the district picking up most of it is what I'm asking, or?
No. 10%? 10% for our classified workers, 15 for our certified.
Okay, so that's their share of the premium is roughly 10 to 15% of what they opt in for.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Me again.
Yes, sir.
Since she's talking benefits,
Yep.
the current pension contribution is 14% that you guys pay, and the employee pays another 14%.
Correct.
Total's 28. I hear that they want to increase it to 32. Have you made any future calculations of that in your calculations, whether you would go 16-16 or 18-14 with that pension contribution?
Some of that would end up in, we'd be required to do that, but I've not heard that.
You haven't heard that? Okay.
No, I've not heard that. In fact, they're talking about reducing it out, at least for administrative staff. So I don't know where that's going to go.
You
but
said
that is
reducing it for the pension?
reducing that.
You created revenue right there. You just created some revenue right there.
We got some online ones as well. I'll do my best with these.
Yep. When and how will you change the PSD from being left at the bottom of the pot in everything that happens? This includes classes, schools, sports, and more.
Well, I think part of this comes with the approach that we are going to be working collaboratively with our staff and with our community members. And this is about setting expectations. Having high expectations for learning, having high expectations for what our students participate in, and making sure that we set that bar high across the district. And that when you set high expectations, you have to also be sure that you hold everyone to the expectation. So if that is in our programming, we want students to cap out, in a career tech program or an AP program or have 15 college credit plus credits. I mean, that's something we have to set. So that is a discussion we've started to have and will continue to have. I think the other part of that, and I think there was a facilities question in there, so I might tag this on. So part of this, and I've said this, I think at the town hall in June, like we need to make sure that we're attractive. We're competing with 35 other options. And when I talk about attractive, I mean not only in the programs that we provide, but with our staff and with our facilities. When you walk into some of our facilities, and I did in the summer, I scratched my head and said, we can't paint that, we can't pull that bush, we can't get the police tape off the playground. So attractive, we want people to look at our building and say, yeah, I'd want to come here. So part of that is setting the expectation, holding people to the high expectation, and making sure that we're attractive, not only in our programming, but in our physical spaces.
All right. So a few of these are listed as they might be in the room, but I don't believe this question was asked. As the mother of 4 PCSD students, one of whom receives special education services through an IEP, I'm concerned about the recent reports of federal employees being dismissed from the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Special Education Programs. How might these federal changes impact the enforcement of an IEP, the level of support our district can provide to students with disabilities? In your professional opinion, what could be the worst case scenario for special education students if these changes disrupt oversight or funding? And does our district have a plan in place to safeguard our students and staff from these outcomes?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, the law isn't going to change around what we have to provide, so we are going to continue to follow law and provide to the very best of our ability, and we do a fairly good job here with our special eds and special needs students. The funding does concern me because, as I just talked, we've lost money in our federal title dollars. The state, we're losing money at the state level. Even so, we'd still be required to provide those services, and we will continue to provide those services and make whatever adjustments we may need to make. But I'm not sure what's going to happen with the funding. I think the plan at the federal level is to eliminate the Department of Ed and all departments within and push all those dollars back to the states. And that would mean our Department of Ed and Workforce would then become the distributor of those funds. And I don't know how that might work.
As the proposed levy is for operational expenses, due to the age deterioration and ongoing maintenance of multiple school buildings throughout the district, what is the plan for future large capital funding needs?
Well, I think first and foremost, I just talked about this being attractive, and so Mr. Pollock, I'm going to point to you over there. He's our new business operations building and ground supervisor. And so he and I and others on our leadership team are working on a 3-year, 5-year, and 10-year facilities maintenance plan. I mean, we need to be able to maintain the building. So I think it's early to speculate on how we might talk about funding additional. We do get permanent improvement monies to maintain our buildings. That's a limited amount of money. But in terms of moving forward and talking about something bigger, we need to get through November 1st, determine where it is we can operate, and if we need to make any changes and what it might look like in May. But part of that is we need to have a better plan, and we will, over the next 3, 5, and 10 years in maintaining our buildings.
All right, so I believe the next one we asked, Cuyahoga County is refunding $1.4 million to the PCSD. The citizens want that money to reduce the levy amount. I am sure that is possible. How can we do that?
Yeah, so that's a one-time give back, I guess I'll say, from the county based on their valuation or whatever they took out. So we are going to get a refund of $1.4 million. $1.4 million is not going to solve our operating issue. That levy's already on the ballot. I don't know how that money could go back to taxpayers.
I believe the next one, I'm going to read it, but I believe we touched on this one already. How much money of the proposed levy in dollar amount and percentage is going to certified employees? Please include salary, PCSD amount of pension contribution, and medical and dental benefits.
I think I answered some of those, but it's 83.3%. Now, that was based on last year's expenditures. When we get to the end of this year, that number might fluctuate somewhat. Don't go with the estimated number, which was 88%. That's an estimate. So salary and benefits are going to be at about 83.3%. I talked a little bit about the benefits and I think was there something in there about pensions or retirement?
Yeah, amount of pension contribution and medical and dental benefits.
Yeah, so we talked about it's 28% total, 14% on the employer, 14% on the employee in terms of whichever system they pay into. Well, that'll be for teachers, is 14 and 14.
All
Might
right.
be something different for PERS, SERS.
In all of the districts you've worked in, what is unique about Parma? What do you enjoy the most about working here?
Oh, thank you for that question.
I wrote that.
Unique, well, we have 3 different communities, 3 different local governments, all feeding into our school district. So to me, that's very unique. And I don't know if I want to call it a challenge, but the unique challenge is making sure that we as a school district are making sure that we have a relationship with each one of those mayors and those cities, because those kids come to our schools. We serve all 3. So that's interesting. And, I've been a superintendent before, so I like being in the role of superintendent. I think the ability to help make a difference, make some change moving into the future, selling some hope for our community is what I enjoy.
All right. If this levy fails by at least 15%, will you hold off for at least a year before trying again? 42% for and 58% against.
Fair question, fair question. Again, I'm going to go back to what I shared here. What's our days of cash and our reserve look like? Are we going to be in a status at the state level if we don't? But again, I go back to the initial why. Why are we asking? Because we keep losing. If we pass a levy in November, it'll be 8 to 10 years before we come back. It's a 10-year emergency levy. Fixed sum, $23 million. So we'd certainly come back to the table and determine what do we need to do internally to right-size the finances, and then determine, the board would actually have to determine whether or not this is something they want to pursue in May.
All right, so this is more of a comment, I believe. To get people to support a new high school, maybe you should look into Akron and Firestone CLC High School. As a school photographer and Parma resident, I am working in many schools in Ohio. The Community Learning Centers platform, I think, would be easier sell. More use for residents. We have no recreation center, no public year-round swimming pool, no public or organizational meeting rooms. Now, Euclid HD and MS are beautiful schools, but how did they pay for that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Community learning centers are actually part of a federal grant. I don't know if they're still offering that federal grant. But part of my time at the state was involved with a group of districts who were part of a grant request for community learning centers. And so a community learning center grant would provide a school or a district the opportunity to build a community learning center. And so there's a great example in Cincinnati. It's called the Oyler School, O-Y-L-E-R. And they are a community learning center. What does that mean? That means they serve their communities, families, and students by educating them, but they also have on-site a dentist, an eye doctor. They do prescriptions. Families can use that venue. They do health screenings. So it's really kind of a wraparound for the community to make sure that not only are they providing the academic piece for students, they're also making sure that the environment's healthy. And so that's actually I may have talked about this a couple weeks ago with somebody, but yeah.
All right. Is it possible for all these anonymous commentators on Facebook, as well as others, representing a diverse range of opinions from both the left and the right, to come together collaboratively develop a singular effective solution to our pressing societal issues? With the vast array of perspectives and experiences they each bring to the table, could a constructive dialogue lead to a consensus that transcends partisan divisions and fosters a more unified approach to problem solving?
The answer is yes. I talked about this in the interview process. One of the questions was something along those lines. How are you going to bring people together? And I asked everyone, I'll ask you, raise your hand if you are here because you care about kids. Yeah, there's our common ground. That's what we should talk about. Let's talk about our kids and what we should do for kids in our school district. These kids will be the future of this community. They'll be the ones that are taking care of us when we're old and need their help. So to me, like I started out, this is an investment in the future of our students and our three communities.
How does the Parma Heights and Seven Hills community participate in the levy?
I'm not sure exactly what that means. Vote. We do have a levy committee. We have a group of about 6 to 10 people who serve on a steering committee. They provide they're providing the strategy around the levy. They have a website, parmalevy.com. Yeah. Yes? parmalevy.com. And there's a lot of information there, so if people want to participate, they can go to the site, they can sign up to volunteer and do some other things. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a question about the salaries of our superintendent and leadership team. Where would you direct someone to find that information?
parmalevy.com.
And that's it.
And then one more thing on the three community piece, that we do have all three mayors that have publicly said they support the district's ask in this levy. So again, just part of trying to bring our three communities together.
One more?
Sure. I got all night.
Yes, you sent this envelope out to all us people about issue 49. If the levy fails, the first comment is here, further teacher and staff reduction. If it fails, are you gonna cut?
So if the levy fails, we're going to look at what our finances are, and so what we have to talk about is, what do we need to make up? So I always use this example, and this is probably a high estimate. So let's just pretend teachers cost $100,000 salary and benefits. If we're down $5 million, that's 50 people. So we will take a very close look at staffing, along with a variety of other things, to make sure that we are able to continue to operate. And we don't want to be in that position, but, and I've done this before where we've had to do that.
Well, since you threw a number out there, $100,000, how does the average teacher salary in Parma compare with districts of similar size?
I think we're
Not-
less. I
not
think our
including-
average,
Okay, not including charter schools, because we know that they're way low.
our starting salary is the lowest.
It's the lowest
Yeah.
in where?
Cuyahoga
Ohio?
County.
In Cuyahoga County, the starting is. But what about the average teacher salary that's, say, 10 years in, 10 or 15 years in? How does it
I'd
compare
have to
with
look.
districts of other sizes? Because these are things people are talking about at the water cooler, you
Sure.
know? And these are questions I'm bringing.
So I don't have it off the top of my head. We have a teacher contract with salary schedules. And
It's just that at 83%, that's the bulk of your budget.
yeah,
So what I'm
yes.
thinking is, if you could work with that a bit, perhaps lower what you're asking of residents to say maybe cut that in half, you might have better luck. It would be a more manageable for people to swallow, but that's just my thought.
Yeah, thank you.
I would just like to add that 83%, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me, that is not just teacher salary. That's all of us. That's bus drivers,
Yeah.
cafeteria, clerical. So it's not just teacher salaries in that 83%. So I just wanted to make sure that was
Thank you.
clear.
Yep.
And I'd just like to say, you talk about a business. What is this business? There's no equipment. There's no machinery. There's nothing making anything. Your people is what drives this, what teaches the children. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. When you're looking at 83%, you're not investing in like $1 billion piece of equipment that's going to run a product. You have a building, you have facilities you have to maintain, you have some other supplies, other software, things like that, but that's your core. So that makes sense to me that it would be 83%.
Yeah, it's not out of line.
There's one more question that came in.
Oh,
How much money is the district losing from tax abatements yearly? Is that?
I'd have to get that for you, and we could post that, but I have, Sean, do you know? I'm not sure.
According to the Ohio report card, the average salary of a teacher in Parma is $86,000, not including the pension. The average salary of the principal is $130,000. So they are paid very well for the job they do. They might start low, but all of us started low in our
Sure.
20s.
Yep.
I mean, I worked at McDonald's, so I know what low is. But it's 86 and 100, it's right on the Ohio report card. And they deserve it.
Yeah, and you're also talking, we do have veteran staff that you climb up. So when you have those higher salaries and those lowers, you get your average. So yeah. All right. I've got 7:15. I think we're going to wrap it. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for attending. And I hope you have a good night. Thanks.